today to talk to you about travel photography. Deciding which camera to take with me on a journey often is a real difficult issue, balancing between size and the quality of photographs I want to take. So one of the decisions I have to make is, which system am I going to take? A full frame APS-c, micro four thirds, which has served me well in the past, or this bridge camera, which is a 1-inch sensor. My tendency has always leaned towards the full frame camera, but storing it in the baggage compartment above the seats has been a real source of annoyance to me. The last couple trips I've actually settled for the APS-c, and on that last trip I was comparing the Sony RX10m3, which has been out for a few months, and the brand new then Panasonic Lumix FZ2500. I have really come to like and depend upon this camera, and I want to share with you why I have come to that conclusion. An instance occurred to me where I was traveling, and I went outside of a museum and I heard some screeching. And I took this camera out of its case and used it kind of like a set of binoculars. Because of the 24-600 zoom, the 24 was able to pick up the action, and then I was able to zoom in on it. And I got some outstanding photographs. And I almost have to chuckle because there were a couple other people there with some very, very nice cameras. But none of them had the combination of camera and lens to capture the photograph. I did. And I did it with a lot less equipment, a lot less expensive equipment, probably on a magnitude of 5 or 6 times less than they did. But having the right lens at the right time is absolutely imperative, and they did not have a 500 to 600 millimeter equivalent lens. I did. So that really got me to thinking. I really enjoy the flexibility of being able to go from 24 millimeters to 600 millimeters at a whim. So I decided to compare the actual results on the same type of scenes between these 3 cameras and see how much difference, what was I really sacrificing to go from this beautiful A7 Mark II with a 42 megapixel full frame sensor to a Sony A6500 24.2 megapixel APS-c sensor, or a 1-inch 20.1 megapixel sensor. What was I going to lose? What were the real facts about it? So I did a test shoot, and the test shoot I did was probably one that is comparable to what we shoot most of the time. So I'm going to put those up there, and I'm going to run through with you. I'll display them in sequence. So these are the first 3 photographs, and I'll let you look at them before I identify which one is which first. And then I'll show you them again and tell you which one's which. So this first one of the series is the A7R Mark II. The second one is the A6500. And finally, the last one is the RX10 Mark III. These are the same 3 images with post-processing, very similarly post-processed. Even at maximum magnification, there was very little difference between the 3 photographs on Lightroom. I even mistook the A6500 for the RX10 images on one series. So there is not a lot of difference, less than I expected. The next thing I did is went to a very, very dark location, and I shot similar shots at ISO 3200. This is a bigger challenge for a small sensor, you've been told, you would think, than it is for a full frame sensor. And here again, I'm going to put up the results. The Sony seem to produce very similar results, raw and when processed. I seem to get very similar results. I don't notice a lot of difference. Again, we're starting with the A7R Mark II, the A6500, and finally the RX10. And there is some difference, but it is much, much less than I expected. So let me move on to size. As you can see, this Sony RX10 is a large camera. And it has a pretty large lens, as you can see. So if the only consideration were size, and we were going to use them with just one lens attached, might be difficult to justify this as large as it is, because you can see the A6500 is actually a smaller camera with this 16-70, which is a 24-105 equivalent. This is a smaller camera, smaller lens combination. The A7R Mark II is also smaller in just about every dimension. This is a 28-70 full-frame lens. This is the kit lens. The 24-70 f4 is a little larger, make these much more similar. But here again, this is one lens. This gets me out to 70 millimeters. This gets me out to 105. So there is a size advantage in the APS-c to full frame. And the 1-inch, you kind of wonder at this point if this was all you were talking about. However, it's not, because 105 or 70 millimeters are not going to get the job done. When I carry my full frame Sony, I carry this bag, and with it a 70 to 200 millimeter lens. Well, that changes everything. That is a big, big lens. And it's not even the largest that you could get. This goes to 200 millimeters. So I could take a crop from this, but I wouldn't have 20 megapixels at the same field of view as I do with the RX10. So some people may say, yeah, you can crop and you just as well off. Not quite true. Is this a better lens? Perhaps, but I'm just comparing my results. We're talking about carrying this, and that gets me 28 to 70. Now, I also do carry a wide angle lens with this one, a 16 to 35, which it gives me even more wide angle coverage. With the APS-c, with that 16 millimeter, which is a 24 equivalent, all I really need to do with that to match up is, and this is one of their less expensive lenses, is a 55 to 210, which is a 315 equivalent. The 55 would be roughly 82.5 or something like that, up to 315. So 315 is half the magnification, and here again you could say the crop factor. And the crop factor, if you cropped to half size, you'd be down to using less than 12 megapixels of the sensor. So we'd be less than the 20.1 megapixels that are on the RX10 Mark III at the full extension. One thing more I'm going to say is I generally carry either this Lumix LX100 or the little RX100 Mark IV. 5 just came out from Sony, which is much smaller than this. They're 24 to 75 roughly equivalents, but the thing I really like about these is this Lumix is a 1.7 to 2.8, so it's a pretty fast little lens, so I can go into a not very bright museum or some other building and take photographs, or I can take family photographs and friend photographs in a fairly well illuminated restaurant or something like that and get a very good shot. Even a not so well, it does pretty well. I've gone up 16 to 3200s with these, and although I do pick up some grain, the results are still very acceptable. I like having both of them with me for the flexibility that it gains me. You have seen the results I've put up on the screen between the three of them, and candidly, I find it very difficult to tell the difference between them all. There is difference, I'm sure there is, but for a camera that costs $1,600 right now at B&H, with a 24 to 600 millimeter lens versus $1,400, $1,398 for body only, and I don't know what the price of this lens is right now, the 16-70. I'm going to say close to $1,000. And the other lens actually very cheap, $300 or $400. We have a body only here that's $28.98 currently at B&H, and a very inexpensive kit lens, probably $400 or $500. If you went up to the more exotic lenses, the f4 solid lens, you'd be spending a lot more. But my point is this is a very inexpensive, and if it's your only camera, a very compact package. And I am a lot less fearful about carrying this in a luggage compartment, a baggage compartment in an aircraft, than I am with my Sony A7R Mark II with all of my expensive lenses. To a lesser extent, the same is true with my A6500. Now, I have left out one camera I really like, and that's the new Panasonic Lumix GX8. And I do use that. It's the Micro Four Thirds. The sensor is probably Sony. Sony has a patent on a Micro Four Thirds sensor that I don't see in any of their cameras. And of course, the Panasonic Lumix does use a Micro Four Thirds sensor. And what I have found about Micro Four Thirds sensor is this. You probably kind of saw this in the corner of the screen. This is a photograph my wife had enlarged for me. This is from a Micro Four Thirds GH1, Lumix GH1. And I am very happy with the quality of that. The resolution is excellent. And this is 16 by 20. So if it holds up in a 16 by 20 enlargement, I'm going to think that's good enough for me. So in conclusion, if you want a smart, easy to carry, relatively light package, easy to access, you judge the results, because I'm not going to tell you the results are not worth the difference. They may be, depending upon your circumstances. However, I have been so pleased with the Sony RX10 Mark III, it's made me completely rethink what I'm willing to take with me on an aircraft when I travel, especially for long distances and to foreign countries. You make your decision on your own. I just want to put this information out for you. Thanks, and have a great day.